Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Unlocked. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson. What an awesome day it is today. I am here with a knight. I'm pretty excited. This person with me on the show today. His name is Bill Storm. He is the author of the book Slaying the Seven Dragons. And I've asked Bill to come on today because I had the opportunity to get a copy of his book. I happened to listen to the audio version of his book, and gosh, what a lot of fun. Like, the narrator is just, it had me smiling, it had me laughing in a few different, moments throughout the book. And it really felt like I'd been taken a little bit back to my childhood, like reading a story to, my grandchildren. It was very animated and I absolutely loved it. But more to the point, I wanted Bill on today's show because he and I have been in similar circles. So we've been in the online space, we've been to a number of different conferences together, and there is so many things that he talks about in his book that are like, no brain. Like, now that you've been in that space for quite some time, after a number of years, it's like, oh my God, they're like no-brainers. But at the time, as you were kind of starting out in business, particularly in the online space, and you're trying to navigate this world, it's like these are all these, he calls them dragons, like the slaying of the seven dragons. These seven dragons, they kind of sit over our shoulder, like this little guy here, for those of you that are watching on video right now, and can often prevent us from the real growth that we so desire. And often we don't even realize that they're there, or that or what they're there for, or what's actually happening with them. So I've asked Bill to be on the show today so that we can really start to strip back and uncover and identify what these seven dragons are, and then what the heck do we do about that? Like, what do we do so that we can be aware that they're there, be aware of their strengths and their weaknesses, and then know how to navigate our way around them so that those dragons no longer become kind of like the Achilles heel of your business, but become, the strength and the determination that they can fuel and give you fire to be able to move forward with some vigor and some pace in a really strategic and profitable, as well as thrivable business moving forward. So that's why I've got Bill on the show today. I think you guys are going to be in for a real treat when you get an opportunity to download his book, which if you stay to the end, we're actually going to give you a link that you can go to, and you'll be able to download a copy of Bill's book, the audio and the ebook version, for free. So, but you must hang around today. Also, you can ask some questions. So as per normal, we are live right now, Facebook, and also on YouTube. So if you've got any questions of us today, please make sure that you make use of this opportunity whilst we are live and ask the questions in the chat down below, and we will make sure that we answer them for you. So that being said, big introduction, but welcome to the show, Bill. Awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much. Honored to be here. We are going to have a lot of fun with this. This has been a passion project and a lot of fun. So I'm glad to be able to share.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Hey, let's start here. Let's kind of go back a number of years, because I know there's a lot of, like, right now, we are literally, last night, I live in on the Gold Coast of Queensland, and right now our state is in lockdown, and we're in lockdown for the next 3 days, the next 3 days, potentially longer. And particularly throughout this pandemic situation that we've been in now for like over 18 months, it's really brought to the forefront people thinking about, how can I do things differently? How can I take what I know, what I do, what I sell, what I make, and actually be able to sell it and make a living and make a difference to other people, whilst also having some level of freedom, mind you,
Yes.
In a world that we live in now, because it's somewhat, well, it's extremely different to the world that we had, 2 to 3 years ago. Things have changed significantly. So this online space is very much I think, at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. And if it's not, we absolutely should be thinking about how do we capitalize, or how do we utilize this opportunity we have right now to use the tools and the resources that we've got, which so happen to be the online space. So let's kind of rewind a little bit to before you started in this, because I know you were in a corporate, you were in the corporate world, and there was a transition that you made. So let's kind of start there and give everybody a bit of an insight into what life used to look like for you, and why the heck are you doing what you do now?
Okay, so it's a fun story. It's a great story, and fortunately, I will be able to share a lot of things with people to help them understand why it's so important that you take an action now. But this is back in February of 1998 is the day that I became the CEO of my own life. It was literally a month before my first child was born, my daughter Samantha. And I was in the corporate space, and I thought to myself, I can't do this. If I continue down this path, I'm going to be trapped into this. I'm not going to be able to provide the lifestyle that I really want. And one of the things that I had that I was super passionate about was the fact that I wanted to be there for my family. I wanted to be there for dinner. I wanted to be there for my kids. I didn't want to miss any of their activities. I didn't want to miss a school concert, a game, soccer, football, whatever you like to call it. And I didn't want to miss any of those things. And I said, if I continue down this corporate path, that's exactly what's going to happen. So that is when I basically just decided to, like Tony Robbins says, to take the island, you have to burn the boats. And that's what I did. I just burned the boat right there on the spot. And thankfully, my wife was extremely supportive of it. I was a little bit crazy to do it right before our first child was born, but that's how it started. Fast forward into 2008, that's when I went into full-time business coaching. So the thing that's interesting here is that I was already in a space where I could do what I wanted, when I wanted, wherever I wanted, and with whomever I wanted. And one of our goals, my wife and I, one of our goals was to be able to spend the winters in South Florida to escape the snow of upstate New York, and then come back in the summertime. And again, the why had to be strong enough. It had to be big enough in order for us to sacrifice and do the work that needed to be put in. So 2008, that's when I started full-time business coaching. So when the pandemic hit, it didn't change my, what I was doing. I was already set up doing that. But what it did do was it really affected some of the clients that I was working with. So where it affected me was, how do I educate them and get them up to speed very, very quickly so that they were able to survive? It was kind of like training camp for these young knights on how do I transition you very quickly, because now it's not, oh, I admire what you're doing, Bill, I'd like to have that someday, into, oh my goodness, I need to do something right now because it has to be today.
Wow, nothing like a bit of pressure, hey? It's like, because I mean, listening to the book and reading some of your story, that business coaching, that transition that you made, was working with like brick and mortar type businesses, right? And so when you talk about, oh my God, it was like that moment of, crap, things are shutting down around me. Yes. Like, I mean, I just, yes. Right now, we're looking around me at our tourism industry, and all of those poor people in that industry going, gosh, we've just shut down again for another 3 days. Everybody's ringing up, wanting to cancel their reservations. And so that was that pivotal moment where you were like, well, all of your clients were like, Bill, we need to do something. We kind of see what you're doing right now, and it hasn't really impacted you. But boy, oh boy, us being in a world where we need foot traffic, I need to have face-to-face, I need to be able to touch and feel and do all of those things with my customers. My world has just been flipped upside down. So now all of a sudden you are thrusted into a world of, now what the heck do I do to help these people? Because, as a business coach, you become really close and attached to them and invested in their businesses, right?
Yes.
So I can only imagine that you would have been feeling this sense of, what do I have to do on what can I do to help all of my precious customers and my, that have become my friends. How do I help them now in this pandemic world? So now let's talk about that. So you've got all of these customers that are going, God, things are upside down. We need some help, Bill. What was that moment, and how did you start to quickly help them?
Okay, so it actually, like most people, most of them procrastinated. They didn't take it seriously enough. They didn't see how long this was going to drag out. So they were just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting. And, it just was constant encouragement. And I said, you cannot wait. You have to create. You've got to do something now, right? You have to, like Zig Ziglar said, you have to prepare to win, right? Prepare to win and expect to win in order to win, right? So if you don't do that, if you don't start doing something now, it's going to catch up to you. And it did for a lot of those people. So the people that didn't heed the advice early, the ones that weren't coachable, those are the people that didn't make it. And that was unfortunate. But the ones that did, listen, and they did take action, and they did start implementing some of the things to transition some of their business online, they did survive. And now they've come through to the other side, at least here in the States anyway. They've come through the other side, and they're rebounding very, very quickly. So they were able to weather the storm because they prepared properly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's kind of shift. We're going to shift some gears now, and let's start talking about, the book that you created, because writing a book is no easy feat. It takes a lot of time and effort to put that together and just coming up with the concept. And I love the concept that you came up around, slaying the 7 dragons. Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned right at the beginning, as we move through our journey as an entrepreneur, these are little dragons like the soulmate behind me, they show up. Sometimes we don't even recognize that they're even staring us in the face.
Yes.
And asking us to do something about it. So how did you come up with that concept, and why did you go down the path of them being the dragons? Why do you even call them that?
Okay, so this is fun. I'll show you. Here's the actual hard copy of the book. So you can see it's very Arthurian, right? It's got the, the dragons and the knights and the king and the whole 9 yards. And it's a funny story because I really wasn't into that much. I wasn't thinking about a book, and I wasn't into like fantasy type stuff all that much. I just really wasn't. But it's funny because now that I've written a book and I kind of look back, I tell this funny story now. Way back when I was in high school, okay? When I was in high school, I must have been about 17 years old. And I was taking, I had to take a language for one of my credits. And so I decided that I was going to, I had been taking Spanish, right? I had been taking Spanish as my language requirement. In that particular year, I was a junior in high school, and they gave us a choice. You could either attend a regular class and do book work, or they had something in my high school that was called the Spanish musical. And the Spanish musical had a theme, and you had to write your own scripts. You had to make your own costumes. You had to, create the sets. And you had to do all of this without speaking English. You had to speak only Spanish. We had to create songs and all this stuff. So the theme that year was Sleeping Beauty. Well, in Sleeping Beauty, there is Maleficent, right? The Wicked Witch. And we had written in a dragon into that storyline, and that dragon was played by my really good friend Jim O'Rourke. So I ended up being one of the main characters. I was the prince. So back then, I actually have video footage of this somewhere, if you can believe it. I have video footage of this somewhere where I was back then, like 17 years old. And there's this scene on stage where I'm fighting this dragon. So I don't know, maybe it was just subconsciously or something came up, but that's been just something in my life. So the dragons represent challenges. It's just a way to represent a challenge in a, to theme it with the idea of the book. And that just became a lot of fun, being able to turn it into a storyline that way.
that is like, I'm sure that there is something way back when that's obviously, still been there, that's like, oh, I could use that. And that analogy of, throughout life we have to slay these dragons, and using that as the metaphor for, those challenges that we face. So let's kind of start with like those that are starting out. So you very much work with nowadays those that are budding entrepreneurs that have got like brick and mortar businesses that are actually wanting to transition to online, right?
Yes.
So what are some of the main things, like in the initial phases, because it's a very different beast, right? Going from a brick and mortar to like, now I'm moving to this online space. What are some, and you tell the story inside of the book about the different dragons that you will face over time, and there's certain ones, it's almost like, you're knocking on the door and, well, oh my gosh, there's a dragon there, I slay that dragon, I get to move to the next, you get to move to the next stage, and then you got to slay that dragon. So let's talk through some of the challenges or the dragons that you have identified that people are going to face, and how do we recognize those, and what do you do about it?
All right, so here's a little bit of fun, just so you know too. I thought the idea of writing a book was going to be very daunting, but the book that I wrote is, obviously being used for online business. So it's a lead magnet. It's 92 pages, but the thing is it literally only took me 90 minutes to write the book. Okay, so what's funny is you go back to the whole idea about the pandemic. What the pandemic did was it gave me pause to think about what challenges my clientele had. And what I discovered was that most of them didn't have a clear message. So, and they had no authority in the online space. So no authority, no message, no way to deliver the message, and that's a problem. So how are you going to write an ad that cuts through the noise on the internet and get somebody to raise their hand that says, yes, I'm interested? So that's how that was born. So what I did is I started working and experimenting with people, and I said, listen, let's do something like we're doing right now. And I would interview them, and I would take that and I would transcribe it, and that would become the copy for the book. Now, laying out the book and all the particulars, right? I started working on that, and I pieced together, a template and a team in order to accomplish all that stuff. And I'm pretty creative when it comes to that. So all of a sudden, I was able to start duplicating what I did for my clients. So all of a sudden, boom, they had a way to deliver their message, to get somebody to say, wow, that title caught my attention. Yes, I want a copy of that. So then I took the idea of like the idea of like the perfect webinar script and started laying that out within the book, so it would get the prospect to connect with someone emotionally and then tie it in with logic, so that they would see that, yes, this is the person that I wanted to do business with. And what was really cool about it was we were finding is that it was giving those people an unfair advantage over their competition, because they were doing something different than everybody else was. While everyone else was complaining that there was all of these problems and there was no business, all of a sudden these people were online dominating and getting people to raise their hand to say, yes, I'm interested in you.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I love the fact, Bill's talked, one of the things that he's spoken about here was the perfect webinar script. And if you guys are not familiar with that, it's a script that is used to create online presentations. And it was coined by, that particular perfect webinar script was coined by Russell Brunson, who's the owner of ClickFunnels. And so Bill being able to use kind of a lot of the techniques and the I suppose a fast track strategies to be able to pull something like this together, and then say, well, you need a way of being able to, create an unfair advantage, making sure that you're building your influence and your authority. You've got a message that's really dialed in so that your audience goes, oh my God, he's talking to me, or that that message is for me,
Yes.
because they resonate with it, and you're finding that connection. And I love that, because that's actually, in alignment with the stuff that we teach too inside of our programs.
Mm-hmm.
We call it the ACE method, building your authority, and then building connection, and then getting exposure. So I love the fact that you're talking, right up my alley, as far as, that type of a strategy is concerned. So now that you're at a point where, I think it's smart interviewing those guys. So let's talk about some of the things that were uncovered. So through that process, and the 7 dragons, or the big challenges that we face, let's kind of uncover some of those. What are they? Like, what's the first thing that you're probably going to go smack bang straight into that is going to prevent you from your next level of growth?
Okay, so one of the reasons in my message for my book, you see the subtitle, I called it the Entrepreneurial Hero's Guide, not the kicking the tire, I'm lazy person guide, right? It has to be somebody who's got that hero spirit, somebody who's got that non-quitting spirit, somebody who's willing to cross the bridge and cut the ropes, and not give themselves an out to fail. They have to be in it. So the first dragon, I call it the white dragon of doubt. And this is the one that crushes most everyone right out of the gate. And I'm going to quote the late, great Zig Ziglar again. Zig said, "You cannot perform in a way that is inconsistent with the way you see yourself." Okay? You cannot perform in a way that is inconsistent with you see yourself. And the challenge is that most people that are thinking about starting a business online or transitioning online, they don't have the confidence in themselves because they have some limiting beliefs that they have in their that they're unconsciously. That's how they're making their decisions. They're making them unconsciously. In fact, I've been doing a lot of research on the brain, and what I understand now is that 97% of the decisions we make are based from unconscious thought, based on conditioning that we've had since we were kids. We didn't ask for it. Generally, it's something that our parents believed and they passed down, and they got it from their parents. So there's these limiting beliefs that says, oh, I could never do what you did, Bill, because, I don't know how to write a book. I wouldn't even know where to start. Or I can't do this online thing because, I didn't grow up with technology. So, I'm technologically challenged. That's not going to work for me. And the list goes on and on and on. So this big list of why I can't do something stops people. And you see that every single day. So you have to be cut from the entrepreneurial cloth. You have to be the brave knight. You have to be the Rocky Balboa. No matter how many times you get hit, you get back up again. And you have to take those limiting beliefs and put them on trial to see if they're really true or not. And if they're not true, if somebody else is actually doing or accomplishing what it is that you say is impossible, well, then we need to convict them and kick them out and replace them with some new empowered beliefs that are going to move you forward.
Absolutely. And like you say, a lot of those self-limiting beliefs, and it's interesting because Vicky Helm and I wrote a book called The She Myth, and it is all about those myths. It's those things that we didn't ask for them, but over time, as a young one, you kind of gather up all of these myths that are not really true. They end up in your subconscious mind, not really even necessarily knowing that they're there, but they raise their ugly dragon head from time to time and tell you can't do it, you're not good enough, you don't have enough money, you can't do this, so on and so forth. So that if you don't deal, and I'm glad that you've kind of brought this up right at the get-go, because if you don't deal with a lot of that and you don't recognize that is the case early on, then it rears its ugly head further down the track. Like, it's still going to be there, isn't it? Like, you've got to address that as early on as possible.
You do.
So some of the things I noticed that throughout the book, you were talking about some strategies and some techniques about, what you need to do. And it's like that self-identification, or becoming aware of what's the narrative actually playing in, what's the record that's playing in the back of our mind, and starting to get that down onto some paper and actually getting it out of your head so you can write it down. Like you say, statistically, I think it's something like we have over 60,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those are negative. Yes. So this piece that you're talking about, like, it occupies most of your mind. And if we can identify that and do something about it early on, you're going to have a lot more a lot more opportunity for success. That's kind of like, you call that the white dragon. Yeah, if I'm correct, it's like
Correct.
the white dragon that's like, he's out there.
Yes.
All right, the next thing that once we've kind of addressed that, you come and knocking at the next door. It's like, okay, now I want to do more, I want to be more. I've realized that I've had these self-limiting beliefs, but I'm working on it, and I want to move forward. What's some of the next things that you're going to encounter?
Okay, so the next dragon that I've got on my list is the yellow dragon, and I call it the yellow dragon of overwhelm. And the reason this one is so important is because many of us start out, or too many of us start out thinking about, how can I do this quickly, and how much money can I make? So what's the fastest way for me to get there? Versus thinking backwards and saying, what do I want my life really to be like? So what ends up happening is we start creating a business model that isn't going to give us the outcome that we were looking for in the first place. And I'll just give an example. So back in 2008, I had a business partner. And, the discussion was about, how do you get, we called it your gross, right? How do you get your gross income up as fast as possible? How many sales do you need? How many this is and that's? So what ended up happening is I ended up doing a lot of teaching. So I did a lot of teaching webinars, and then I would, if somebody needed more help in the area or whatever, I would have a conversation, and sure enough, I'd build this relationship, and it became to the point where they wanted me, right? They wanted to talk to me all the time. So what ended up happening is I worked and worked and worked, and I grew our income very, very quickly, but I created this business model that I didn't want at all. I was working 10 hours a day on the phone nonstop. I was exhausted by the end of the day. I didn't have anything left in me to have a conversation with my wife. I didn't have enough energy to even, to play with my kids the way I wanted to back then. And I said, what did I do? What did I just do? I created this whole business model that doesn't serve me at all. All I did was, I was one-tracked on someone else's goal. Mm-hmm. So that's a very dangerous one when you're first starting out. And when you get it, especially when you get into some of these different groups we've been into, peer groups and stuff, big numbers will be thrown around a lot, and you can buy into that. You can get sucked into that idea of these different numbers. And what you need to do is you need to step back away from that and say, wait a minute, it's not the number that I'm after. It's the end result of what I'm going to get by creating this business model around what I want my life to actually be like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And how interesting that you've brought that up in terms of, because that is something that is spoken about, particularly in the online space. Is like you're aiming for, and I'm just going to put it out there, create $1 million business, or create a multi-million-dollar business, or a $10 million. And so therefore people get into that mindset of, I'm striving for that number at whatever cost. And I'm going to the way to get there is, I believe I've got to hustle and grind without, like you state, saying, well, what do I want my lifestyle to actually look like? And then reverse engineering that. And sometimes even going, do you know what? To have that lifestyle, I actually don't need $1 million.
That's
I don't
true.
need $1 million to create that lifestyle that I actually want, which is quite interesting. And I know that in the space that we're in too, there's been some numbers thrown around as to how much you actually need to create a really good lifestyle, and it's nowhere close to the $1 million mark. So interesting that you should talk about that that again early on in the piece. I want to ask this question. So when you're starting out, let's say, because there's a lot of people that, in particular in the brick and mortar space, or in any space for that matter, who are starting out and they mightn't have a lot of financial backing. So they're starting from ground zero with nothing. How soon do you think, because I think this is coming up in the next kind of, the next challenge that we face, but how soon after you have come up with what do you want your business to look like, do you have to start implementing the things that you need to do to get stuff off of your plate? Because in the initial stages, most think, I've just got to get stuck in. I've just got to do what I've got to do to get this up and running. Then there comes a time where maybe that's just not sustainable anymore.
Yeah, well, one thing that I know for sure is that if you're trying to wear all the hats in your business, eventually that's not going to work anymore, provided that you are trying to, hit a higher number, right? So let's just say, for example, that you're going, your goal is to do $20,000 a month. I don't need a big team to hit $20,000 a month. I really don't need that. I can do that I say this just because of my experience now, because I have figured out what works and what doesn't work and how to be efficient. I can do that part-time and hit those kind of numbers, right? But even if you don't have the skill set yet, hiring a big team too early on, I think, is a mistake. And until you know what the end result is going to be. So here's an example. Some people are really, really poor, really, really poor at building and running teams. And the reason I say I'm poor at it is because I don't enjoy it. That's like one of those things that just gives me anxiety, and it literally robs me of the freedom that I want, because I don't want to have to be accountable to show up at a team meeting every week. That's, to me, that's prison. I don't like that. But I do recognize what things that I'm really good at and where I should be spending my time. And I know what things that I'm not so hot at. Now that I won't hire an employee or a team member, but I will find somebody who is just absolutely electric, somebody who's just amazing at that piece, that can do it better than me, and that actually, likes geeking out on that part of the business that I don't like to do. And that, to me, that creates freedom. That's something that I would enjoy. So I would say first is, decide what you want, decide what you don't want, decide what your number is, then talk with someone who is experienced as a coach and figure out what's the fastest and most efficient way in order to be able to get there. And then you'll be able to decide on whether or not you actually need a team of people, right? And it depends on what kind of business you're setting up as well.
Because that I think is also one of the dragons that you talk about, is this sense of division. So let's explain to everybody, and I think you talk about this as the purple dragon. It's like this concept of the whole is only as good as the sum of its parts.
Yes.
So let's kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Okay, so in this case, I'll use like a superhero analogy. I don't know if I'm not big into superheroes either, but most people know who Spider-Man is, or, the Incredible Hulk, right? They make up the Avengers. So whatever superhero maybe you identify with, right? You can identify with one and you say, okay, well, Spider-Man is amazing. So I'll pretend that I like Spider-Man. And I say, okay, well, Spider-Man's amazing, and he can, guard the city against all kinds of bad guys. But if a bigger challenge comes, right, where instead of just the city, now he's got to, keep the whole world safe, he's not going to be able to do that on his own anymore. So when he gets to that point, he needs to team up with somebody who's equally amazing at something that complements his skills. So, for example, if he teams up with the Incredible Hulk and Thor, all of a sudden now you've got this unstoppable force. You're not hiring somebody that he needs to manage. He's got people that can do their thing all on their own and be amazing at it. And together, teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely. So the next, and that is about, you finding the who, not necessarily the how, because that again is a bit of a trap that we can often fall into. Is trying to learn everything and be everything in our own world, and then find that that has created almost like a jail cell for oneself, that you can't get out of. So the important thing to really understand, what is it that you need in your business, and then go and find the people that actually can do that one piece of, could do that piece of the puzzle, rather than trying to figure it out yourself. Something that I would also say, I mean, in this case, how important is it when you are finding your who and not trying to do the how? How important is it that you really that you understand what it is that you really need so that you can find the right who? Because sometimes also that can be a bit of a trap, right? It's like, oh, I think I need that person, and you think you need that, but it's not necessarily what you need if you actually went back to the plan.
Yes. Okay. So I think that comes back into, know thyself, know what you're good at and know what you should be doing. And, a lot of us are multi-talented. I mean, it's true. I mean, I've met a lot of amazing people that can do a lot of different things, but in order to go to the next level, you have to be able to replace yourself, and you have to be able to take yourself out of certain tasks and certain jobs that you're doing, regardless of whether you're good at them or not. A rising tide rises all boats, right? So you want everybody to go up the ladder. You want to be able to replace yourself and have somebody focus on the tasks that, I guess I'll call them the tasks that don't produce the revenue, right? The things that produce the revenue are the sales and the authority that you create and the message that you put out to the world. So for me, where I'm best suited is getting the message out and handling sales. Now, depending on where I am or what I want to do, could I hire somebody to handle the sales underneath me so I could just focus on the big picture and the big message? Absolutely, 100% I could do that if that's the level that I want to take the business. And only you can decide where you're at in your life with that, whether or not, that is something you aspire to or something you're not. So I'm going to keep going back to that. To know what you don't want in your life is more important. I guess when I was in my 20s and when I was in my 30s, everything was about what do I want to add? What do I want to add? How do I want to build? How do I want to grow? And now that I'm in my 50s, I'm like, no, here's what I want to do now. I want to get rid of things. I want to peel the onion, and I want to see how many things can I take away. And the more things that I strip away, the more successful I've become. It's completely counterintuitive to what the thoughts are.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you should say that many of us, particularly in this age bracket, I think when you get over 40, you're kind of like, okay, I've got all of this stuff now because I've we go through that phase of accumulation of information, of stuff. And then you get to the point of, now, well, what things can I repel? What things can I actually get rid of to allow me to spend my time on the things that actually really light me up, the things that I actually want to be doing.
Right.
You talked about this concept of really understanding. Most people set out in business, and I think in the book it talks about, we set out. And a lot of people will say, I just want to make a real difference. When the fact of the matter is, if we just call it like it is, we will start a business so that we can make more money, that we can have some form of meaning, and that we create some level of freedom. And somewhere along the way, often that gets a little bit, goes a bit skew if we get a little bit clouded at some point. And I don't know, you get sucked into this concept of just be a good person and do really good things, and everything will just come your way when you do it that way.
That becomes an excuse for why you're not doing well. So, if you're not succeeding, you're not doing well, all of a sudden it becomes, I just want to make a difference, and you become like the comforter type of a person. And I'm like, no, you're when you create this business, you're trying to create more money, more meaning, and more freedom for the benefit of your family, right? You're not doing this because it's a charity. It's not, you're not at a beauty pageant, just doing the beauty queen wave type thing. So I think that's another one of those dragons that comes in here, and it deceives you to start saying, hey, you know what? Everything is okay. Just be a good person and things will come to you. Sorry, that doesn't happen that way.
One of the things that I'm very conscious of today, guys, is because we're kind of delving deep into these 7 dragons, and I want to leave some intrigue here. I don't want to kind of uncover everything, because the best way that you can take this information on board is to actually get a copy of the book, and to listen to the audio if that's what you prefer to do, or read it. Not only that, but it's actually reading the things that Bill's talking about. And after each chapter within those, he gives you very specific actions and tasks. And he even calls out and says, hey, if you want a little bit of help about this, shoot this off to me, and I'll give you some feedback on it.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you to do that. The place that you can go to get a copy of the book, and it is, he's very generous, it's free. Right, you can go over to www.slayingthe7dragons.com and get yourself a copy of the book, and just start, listen to it over the next few days. You'll be pleasantly surprised when you start listening to it. You'll have a bit of a chuckle like I did, because it's very well, it's interestingly narrated. I think the guy that Bill has, that's done the narration, has done a fabulous job. So have a bit of a listen and really take on board what he's talking about, because these 7 dragons are either going to stay there behind your shoulder and be like roaring at you without you even realizing it, and preventing you from moving forward and creating the business that actually fuels your life, not the other way around. We don't live to do, to be doing your business 24/7, and that's the only thing you do. Never forget that the reason that you want to start your business is so that you can have more money to be able to do the things you want to do with your family, create more meaning, and create some level of freedom in your life. That's what you want to do. That's what the Unlock Show is all about. So I want to make sure that I just get that message, that I wanted to share that, get that message across, and to encourage people to go and get a copy of the book, like I said, is for free. So without giving too many more of these dragons away, because I don't want to uncover everything, we want to make sure that people want to go and actually to read the rest of the book. What are some of the other things that you are just like, this is a big roadblock, like you need to understand this particular piece of business, and this is potentially what you need to do to help you move forward? What would be maybe 3 pieces of advice you would give people?
Okay, so this is particular. I'm gonna speak particularly to a lot of the people that are even in our own peer groups, because I think this is important, because I've seen too many of those people fail to get past go. There's a kids game. I don't know if you've ever played it, but it's called Chutes and Ladders.
For you Aussies out there, or Kiwis, snakes and ladders.
Okay. So what happens is, right, you make the wrong, you start to climb the ladder of success, and all of a sudden you hit the slide and the chute, and you go right back down to zero again. And no one wants to admit that that's happening, right? Everybody wants to put on this face that everything is okay and they're doing well and everything is fantastic, when it's not. And there's not a good reason to continue doing that over and over and over again. We're all smarter together. So I think it's really important that you surround yourself with people that are on the same mission as you, but don't hang around the people that just want to hang out, because that's what happens a lot. I see a lot of people that they like to get together at the events, and they like to hang out, and they like to have fun, and they like to, be seen, but they're not really accomplishing anything. So the people that you hang around, the people you surround yourself with, have to be focused, and they have to be good accountability partners to say, hey, Bill, you're all over the place, man. You stay focused on one thing, stay focused on the goal. And don't be the smartest person in the room. Challenge yourself, be willing to humble yourself, and be willing to invest in yourself, and get with somebody who's actually achieved the level of success that you're actually looking for, or the level of freedom that you're looking for. Don't just talk to somebody just because they claim to know how to do something, because there's a lot of people that, want to appear as though they do, but they haven't really achieved much. So, vet these people, know who they are, know who your champions are, know who your heroes are that are going to be able to help help you with your go up goals, right? The go up goals that you're trying to achieve.
Oh, that's a really, really great point, because, in this, as you say, you can go along to those events and there's some great people there and you love to hang out, but fantastic point that you make. Find a circle of people who've actually done, not just say they've done it, but have actually done it and have proven results that you can lean on, you can ask for advice from, they can be confidants of in your inner circle, and that way you've got a really fantastic support peer group of people who are not all at the same level as you. You've got people that you can aspire to, that you can learn from. I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate. I've been involved in the martial arts my entire life. I mean, literally since I was 9 years old. So, 50 or 40, whatever, 40 something. I'm 51, however much that is. Too long. Okay. So one of the things that I was very fortunate with is I had an amazing mentor when I first started. And as I got to be a teenager, I started working for him. And I was doing something as basic as cleaning, like cleaning the studio, vacuuming, mirrors, doing all of these grunt work things that other people would might look at you and say, what are you doing? But one of the things that he was very, very smart about was he had a success library, like a audio library. And while I was doing these different tasks, he would tell me, I want you to listen to something. You're not cleaning, you're learning right now. You are in martial arts university. And if you do these things now, right, if you will allow me to, groom you, you will become someone and you'll be able to do some things that other people only dream of. And that whole idea of having someone like that who is actually has the level of success that you're looking for, and somebody that you can trust that will take you under their wing, and you have to give them as much, if not more, than they're giving you in return. And that's really how you're going to grow. So just surrounding yourself with people that like to hang out and have a good time. Yeah, okay, there's a place for that, but you have to remember that in the end, those people aren't going to pay your bills. They're not going to give you the freedom that you want to spend with your family. They're not going to they're not going to fuel that, and that's what you have to be very cautious of. If you're looking for friends, that's different than what we're doing here.
Yeah, the friend bank and the love bank don't pay the bills, right?
That's correct, right? So you have to be, like the book is subtitled, you have to have that spirit. You have to be an entrepreneurial hero, and it's not a hero. You're not being a hero to your family or to provide, right? If you're spending a lot of time hanging out with your buddies, right? You've got to be focused. You're on a journey. There's these dragons who are very, very real. These challenges are scary. They will send you right back down the snakes, and they will eat you alive. And you can see this with other people that maybe you started the journey with, and they're not with you anymore because they got devoured by one. They became a crispy, tasty snack to one of the dragons along the way.
Yeah. I love that. Well, look, I want to say thanks so much for being here today. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I love the concept and the creativity that you have created with your new book, Slaying the Seven Dragons. And I want to make sure that everybody knows where to go and get a copy of that. So let me just pull that up again on the screen so that you guys know where to go get your free copy. It's www.slayingthesevendragons.com. Go and get your copy there, and follow the tutorship of Bill that he's put inside of this book for you to understand what these dragons are, understand when you're faced with them, and what the heck you need to do to be able to continue. You got it going up, going up using your go goals to be able to continue to climb the ladder of success, and maybe avoid some of those those snakes or those shoots that might shoot you right back down to ground zero. So thank you so much for being here today. No doubt we'll be continuing to follow your journey, and I know that you've got some other awesome stuff on your website that people can go and check out. So again, you can have a look at some of the other things that Bill's got there. And if people want to follow you and want to have more of Bill Storm, where do they go, Bill? Where's the best place for them to hang out with you on socials?
Well, I would first of all, I would friend me. I'd love to say hello. One of the things you'll find about me is I always like to be a welcome guest, not an annoying pest. So I don't pitch people. I just like to add a lot of value. And so if you are on my friends list like that, that's great. Of course, I've got a Facebook page as well that you can kind of hang out with me from there. So I do share when you do opt in to grab a free copy of the book. I send out, I've got a podcast, and I send out episodes from that. I send out, video, little minute to win it teaching lessons and things like that. So there's lots of ways to connect with me. I got to just say really quick, there's all these comments coming in, and they're really nice comments. So I just wanted to acknowledge Robin and Larissa and people that are dropping comments in there. I'm watching you, but I haven't responded to any of those there.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that Bill knows where to find you guys, and he can comment after the show. But thanks everybody for being here. Yeah. It's great that that we have this type of interaction. People get an opportunity to kind of chat with us, and they are saying some fantastic things. They've been thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, Bill, and I know that these guys will go and download the book because they'll be interested, because they are all entrepreneurial heroes in my eyes. Those that watch the Unlock show, that they're totally in alignment with that, and they're doing some great things to move their businesses forward. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. My special guest, Bill Storm, who is the author of Slaying the Seven Dragons. I want you guys to make sure that you go and show him some love and download his book, and make sure that you get some really great insight when you read it. And thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for your comments today. And we're going to be back again with another episode of Unlocked with me, Tracy Wilson, on Friday morning, 10 a.m. Brisbane time. Until now, or until then, I should say, have a fantastic rest of the week. If you are like me in lockdown in Australia, enjoy that time of just, being able to just stay put for a bit and use the time wisely. You just never know. You might be able to create something amazing in your business over 3 days. All right, guys, have a fantastic rest of the week, and I'll see you again soon.
Tracy, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bill. See ya.